Hello and welcome to Canadian Footy Fan Channel. Content for fans, by fans. I am your host, Chris Talks Footy, and today I am bringing you Canadian Footy Assembly, episode number 11. MLS is back, but as it may become known as the episode of shame, as we will touch on as we get into this episode. But as per usual, I'm joined by some excellent co-hosts this evening. I'm joined by Maddie from Montreal. How you doing, Maddie? Oh, I don't know if Maddie's there. And we're joined by West Coast Felipe. How you doing, Felipe?
Yeah. Hello.
Oh, you there, Maddie? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
How you
hear
doing
me
this
or no?
evening?
I'm good. You?
I'm good. And Felipe, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, that's excellent. We're all in good moods considering all three of our MLS teams lost last night in rather embarrassing fashion, but in different ways. But we'll be getting into that very shortly. We will have Jordan joining us shortly. He is running a little bit late, but we'll touch on Toronto FC last to give him an opportunity to make it tonight. A reminder to smash the like button and the subscribe button and to leave your thoughts in the comment section. If you're listening to the podcast, please follow the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, as well as leave us an honest review. Also a reminder that everybody's links are in the description, so make sure to follow everybody. But without further ado, let's kick this episode off. So first off, we're going to be discussing MLS is back and focusing on the three MLS sides, Vancouver Whitecaps, CF Montreal, and Toronto FC. As I mentioned earlier, all three sides lost in rather interesting and slightly embarrassing fashion. But we'll start off with Vancouver, which was the evening game last night. I did plan to watch the game, but to be honest, after TFC's performance at the end, I did not want to watch any more football last night. But with regards to the game, Vancouver Whitecaps lost the game 2-1. The goal scored by Vancouver was by Javane Brown. Unfortunately, Vancouver actually had a very good first half and were leading 1-0 at halftime. But then the game got away from them in the second half. And this is where I'm going to come to Felipe, our resident Vancouver fan. What happened in this game? Walk us through it.
I mean, it was very much a tale of two halves. Because it was, I think one of the best ways that it could be described was I saw Caleb Wilkins, who covers the Vancouver Whitecaps on 86 Forever, said that it was both the best case scenario and worst case scenario in 90 minutes. Because in the first half, you take this team that not many people have any real idea of what to expect of them, because their expectations are high given the squad and the strength and the recruitment and about time, but also no idea of how it actually will go, on the pitch. And in the first half, it was surreal. It didn't look like the Vancouver Whitecaps that we knew last season. They were passing the ball superbly. They were incredible in breaking down plays from RSL. They were picking off passes, intercepting, just winning the ball back up high. And really, the only issue of the first half was they didn't put away their chances. There was about 2 or 3 opportunities in the first half to make it 2-0, let alone maybe 3-0, and put the game to bed. And I think, you can say for all 3 Canadian teams, they were just missing a lot of their finishing touch. And the Whitecaps had some really good opportunities. The goal came off a set-piece play that was very well executed. Javane Brown pouncing on a header. And at halftime, everyone was in optimistic mood. This was a new Whitecaps, a new era, it seemed. This was the best we've ever seen them play. And for one half, it felt like the whole stadium swelled with hope. And then quickly, it deteriorated in the second half because everything that went right in the first half seemed to go wrong in the second half.
Yeah.
The team just fell flat. Their passing was flat. It's their marking, they switched off. It seemed like they weren't as dynamic as they were in the first half. They kept clearing the ball instead of trying to control it.
Yeah.
They stopped winning second balls, and RSL just grew into the game. They grew comfortable because Vancouver allowed them to. And what was so heartbreaking was right before RSL's first goal, Brian White was through on goal to score, took a heavy touch and ran into Zach McMath, the RSL keeper. And then not 2 minutes later, off a set piece, RSL tied it up through a short corner. And, I forget who crossed, maybe it was Severino, had all the time in the world. No one was closing him down to pick his place. Javane Brown was defending 3 players at the back post. It was a shambles in defense, and then we got punished for it. And then the second goal, it was just people were trying to push up high, but it wasn't structured, it wasn't organized, it left gaps.
Yeah.
They attacked the left side. Ranko had to shift over. Kuas had to drop in. It was just like 6s and 7s at the back, and we got punished for it. Kralek, to his credit, scored a beautiful finish, and Vancouver just couldn't respond. All of the good work that they did in the first half, all of the chances that they had in the first half, and even that one in the second half, all for naught as they lost the game in the end. And it was frustrating because the first half showed so much promise, and there's still a lot of positives that we can take away, but it's one of those things where it's like late in the season, these are the kind of games that you're going to come back and wish that you would have won, that you would have at least taken a point, but definitely should have done enough to win. And afterwards, when I went to the press conference, that was the mood throughout the squad. Ryan Gall talked about how frustrated he was, how the team played really well, and they were super disappointed because they seemed to have switched off in the second half. Vanny talked about the lack of organization a bit in set pieces, and it just seemed like for some reason they got scared. They maybe didn't expect themselves to play and dominate so well. And then when they saw it start to crumble, maybe they got in their own heads because they were like, no, we want to continue being dominant. And they started to go back into their shell and started to get confused, started to get disorganized, and never really could recover.
Do you think, I know, going by the reaction on Twitter, a lot of fans were thinking the players were getting back into the old habits of last season. Do you think that perhaps it was what happened in the second half was just early season blip where maybe they got a little bit frustrated in the second half, or they just lost a little bit of something, maybe even their legs, and then they became tired, which seems to be a theme throughout MLS in the opening weekend, and they just seem to resort back to old habits, and it's something that maybe it can be worked out fairly easy, or are you a little bit concerned that you're still seeing these old habits?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very much it's a mix of both. I do think some of the old habits are still there, but I do think fitness was a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
I know I was talking to Nathan Durek, who's a journalist who works at Area 51 Sports, and we were just remarking about how it seemed like the left side, especially Luis Martin's side, he didn't have the legs to get back consistently. And in the second half, we really saw that come through as they were attacking that side. And I think because they were starting to get exposed a bit, because they were getting a little tired, and I was very surprised that Vanni Sartini didn't make subs early on. That was something that I was talking about with pretty much everyone in the press box, that why did it take until like the 65th, 70th minute, right when they were just before they scored, to change, when it was obvious from the 48th minute that something needed to change because RSL started to get a hold of the game. And I think that was a bit of a tactical mistake by Sartini, keeping some players on for maybe a bit long that even though Whitecaps played 8 games of preseason,
Hmm.
that still doesn't guarantee that you're in tip-top shape and fitness and
No,
in sharpness
and
for the
preseason
matches.
isn't played anywhere near the level of a regular season game. Players are taking it easy. They're not going to go into certain challenges. They're not going to push themselves beyond their limits. Obviously, in games, players will do whatever is necessary to get the win, or so we hope. What did you think of your new signing? So I know Takaoka started in net, and Cordova came off the bench in the second half. What did you think of the new signings? Were they impressive?
Yeah, I mean, Takaoka definitely was. Takaoka off the bat sort of showed why,
Hmm.
Sartini thinks he's one of the best keepers in the league. He made some really, really impressive saves, some like point blank saves. Um, I think he does need to work a little bit on the way that he saves. He did a punch save where he sort of punched it back into danger, and then the rebound thankfully went astray. But his reactions were really good. His reflexes, he's very agile and acrobatic, and I think he made a very, very strong debut. Even though we lost, it could have been probably much worse the way that we were switching off. Sergio Cordova, I think, did a decent debut. I mean, um, he was sort of paired up front with Brian White, and he had some little flashes where he took a defender on. He was a bit more physical. I think he's better technically than Brian White with his
Hmm.
feet. He can create space a bit better. I think he's still getting into the team. He had a head injury and they had to do like the concussion check, and he was fuming because it was taking so long in the dying
Yeah.
minutes. So it shows, that he's here for it. He wants to play. He wants to help the team win. He's committed. So I think he'll do well moving forward. I can see him gradually being turn into the starting number 9. I mean, you
Yeah.
kind of have to when you're on
Yep.
DP wages.
Yeah.
But so far, those two had the potential. I was surprised that Matias Laborda didn't start.
Yeah.
He
I was shocked
was
too.
our very first signing.
Yeah.
He's been there since January, and
Yeah.
he didn't start. And I asked
Didn't even
Sartini
come off the
afterwards.
bench either.
He didn't exactly. Didn't even come off the bench. I asked Sartini afterwards in the conference why he wasn't featured, and Sartini said that it was a tactical choice. It was because they wanted Javane Brown on the right, Martins on the left, to help them in the build-up, to help them with attacking, but
Hmm.
that he is going to play a lot of games
Yeah.
at center back or at right back. But this particular time, it was more of a tactical choice, one that I think he might regret a bit, because I think Laborda is a very good leader in the back, and I think
Yeah.
with when players are starting to fall into bad habits, they're getting nervous and stuff like that. Somebody having a leader like that at the back, to a calming presence, a commanding presence, is really useful to see out a game and to like get through those nervy moments. And I think the Whitecaps were missing that with his omission.
Yeah. I know Juan is who's on the channel quite regularly, and actually congratulations to Juan on getting engaged this past weekend.
I did see that.
Good on you. We here all wish you the best and happiness going forward, living your lives together. So congratulations. But I know Juan follows the Uruguayan league quite closely. His family roots are from Uruguay. So he's very big on the border. And I wasn't too sure about him, but looking into him a little bit more since Juan told me about him, I think he's an excellent signing. I'll be honest, I was a little bit shocked he did not start. Obviously, when Brown scored, then you're like, well, maybe at the back, what he wanted to do, Sartini worked, but I definitely think you guys need to get Laborda in there as soon as possible. So obviously, you guys are playing next week, Saturday, against
Away to San Jose.
Away to San Jose, yeah, that is correct. What is one thing you just want to see the team improve on heading into that game?
I think, I mean, obviously taking your chances, right, is the biggest thing. Is like we did really, really good to create chances, to cut through the defense, to cut through the midfield. We were very, very good in transition. We just got to put those chances away. So I think that's a huge thing. And the second thing is not switching off. It's maintaining the structure and the organization, maintaining concentration for the 90 minutes. Because that was I think a big thing. I mean, the first goal was just because Sartini, he likes to have two banks of four defending a corner, and as soon as the first ball went short to go with an in-swinger, the defense was lost. They kind of came forward, they left three players free at the back, and it was a shambles. So I think it's just having concentration, and I guess that does come with playing more games, but you never want to take 4, 5, 6 games to get settled into the league because, I mean, maybe not this season with a new playoff format, but usually 4, 5, 6 games at the beginning, those points can mean the difference between playoff and not, right? A playoff position or not. So hopefully it doesn't take that long. Hopefully it just takes this one and we can go to San Jose and get a result, maintaining that concentration and putting away our chances.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a winnable game for you guys. I think it'll be important for you guys to get a result, if maybe not a away victory, but at least get some points on the table. But as you touched on that last point there with regards to being consistent for the 90 minutes, that was a problem for all three of our clubs throughout the game. And I think we'll move on here to Montreal and we will come to Mehdi. Obviously, Montreal was playing Inter Miami. They lost the game 2-0, conceding goals in both halves. Mehdi, do you want to walk us through the game and your reaction to the result?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually following the game on my phone because I was at the hockey game.
Yeah, I saw that. Before, how was the Canadians game?
Well, they did like in Montreal fashion. They lost as well, but it was a 5-2. But the first two periods was great, and then we were. But yeah, the CF Montreal game. I think all three teams. We don't want to jump to conclusions just after the first match.
Yeah.
Even Vancouver had great possession in the first half of their game, and the CF Montreal, we have the next 6 games on the road. So if you remember last year, we had the final 7 road games that we won that actually helped us out a lot. So if we can, take this loss and move on and actually get some wins from it. I find it was tough to see the opening. Ibrahim should have buried a goal. Like, I don't understand how he didn't bury that one. From a quote from the coach, right? Losada's first game as coach. Scoring opportunities we created, that's the most important thing. Then, of course, it's the lack of efficiency. You need to put the ball in the back of the net if you want to take points, especially on the road. Yeah. So I think he really touched on even in the Whitecaps game, too. There were many times they could have been finishing. But what stood out for me was Herrera from all of our pickups. He had a great game. I know there was... in the opening goal, actually, there was poor defending on both Camacho and Herrera, but I find he picked up his game. And then, we also lost Pantemis at the 80th minute, so that sucks.
Yeah, that's not good.
Sirois is not really seasoned. He looked a little nervous too. So in the end, missed chances. I think they could have. It's not that I don't think they deserve to win, but I think they had too many chances that they could have been in contention in the game. I'm looking at the stats right now. So Montreal had 14 shots and 6 on target, and didn't score a single goal. That's frustrating, right? You'd think with that sort of output with your shots, you would be scoring at least a goal or 2. And the shot numbers are very similar to that of Inter Miami. So they were just more clinical than you guys on the night, unfortunately. You guys did give some minutes to some younger players, so like with the likes of Saliba and Raya. Were they impressive for you? Raya had some opportunities in the game. I think they positive on both their. I saw a positive outcome on both their parts. Yeah.
Do you think Raya can step in until Milovic is back? I think that's what the fans are wanting anyways. I think everybody was a little bit shocked to see Saliba starting. Obviously, he is more experienced with Montreal, with Raya being on loan in the last 2 seasons. But do you think he'll be able to fill in for Milovic until he's able to return? Because Milovic is going to be out for, I believe, 2 months, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why we have him, right? We want him to step up for sure. Kyoto as well. He was leading scorer last year, right? Yeah, I see good things happening with Sean Raya.
That's good. That's good. So obviously your guys' next game is against Austin away, as you touched on there. And that's going to be a difficult game. Austin, especially last season, was very, very good. I know they did lose their opener against St. Louis in a bit of a shock result there, with some poor goals in that game that they gave up. But I think with Austin, what they showed last season, they're a very strong side. So that's going to be a difficult game. Are you a little bit concerned going into that game? Or do you think CF Montreal can turn it around?
I mean, I think they can turn it around. But, definitely coach needs to, I don't know, maybe step up a bit and get the group together. Maybe think about doing some switches and in the lineup. Definitely nervous for Austin for sure because they're a strong team.
Yeah. Felipe, were you able to catch any of the Montreal game?
Yes, I did actually, and I was kind of in the same thing. That's why I was watching in the press box before the game, the Whitecaps game started, and it was sad to see Pantemis's injury because I thought he did quite well. And I thought he was going to be like step up. I thought he was going to step up for Montreal this season. So hopefully he's not out for too long. I haven't seen any update, but it felt like it was mostly missed chances as well. I don't understand. Ibrahim missed it when the goalie passed it right to him in the first half. And it went beyond that, and then it seemed like the second goal was a bit farcical. Hit the post, and it cleared off the line, but he passed it right back to him, and then it went in. It just felt like it was bad luck. It was a day of bad luck for Montreal, and I was impressed by the youngsters. I feel like the defense let it down a bit in terms of just creating unnecessary problems. In the way that Miami attacked and pounced on those mistakes, but I think Montreal showed that they have the capability to score goals and to be dangerous, even with the young team that they have, with the high profile players leaving. But I think it's gonna take a lot for Losada to have these players buy into his team and be together, united, moving forward, because of it just seems like it's a club that is currently kind of a mystery in where they are, where they're headed, what their plan is. But hopefully they can pick it up and continue to do as well as they did, or at least half as well as they did last season.
Like we've discussed in previous episodes, we all have a couple of questions for Hernan Losada. We don't quite know if he's up to the level of coaching at this level, I guess. Obviously, what happened at DC United was a bit of a debacle there. With CF Montreal, I think they need to do a bit of a rebuild, but they're still stuck with some of their older players. So it's like they're stuck in between. It's unfortunate that they had such a successful season last season, and it seems to have come and gone in the space of we'll give it 2 seasons, because the season before they had shown improvement, and then last season they were excellent. It's unfortunate that they couldn't build on their success from last season. They've seemed to take a step back, and to the point where they may need a bit of a rebuild. But they are giving opportunities to young Canadian players, so we can't fault them with that. We appreciate that a lot, even if we are rival fans, it does definitely benefit the Canadian national team program in the long run by giving these players opportunities. I guess we'll move on to Toronto FC. Unfortunately, Jordan hasn't joined us yet, so I can touch on it. Very frustrating. So the game obviously ended 3-2. Goals by Bernardeschi and Mark Anthony Kay. Toronto obviously was down 1-0, but were able to claw their way back into the game in the second half. And they had a 2-1 lead in the 89th minute. They then conceded 2 goals in the 90th minute and beyond, and then lost the game 3-2. First half, I guess it was, I'll go there, was very, very sloppy and very, very poor from both sides, to be honest. I will be honest, DC United finished last in the East last year. I can see them doing the same this year. I think they're not a great team at all, which makes losing to them even more embarrassing. But as I was touching on in the first half, very, very frustrating from both sides. Obviously, they were able to take the lead in the first 15 minutes. Click, the former Leeds player, now a DP for DC United, just ran into wide open space in midfield, and then just long range effort that wasn't the greatest strike in the world. Sean Johnson should have saved it. Whether or not he was blinded to the shot with the TFC defender, I believe it was Roasted, blocking his view. I can't quite tell, but I have to assume that's the case because he reacted fairly late and he should have gotten there. The second half, TFC played a lot better. And Richie Larea was able to win a penalty, doing typical classic Richie Larea stuff by drawing the defender in and then with his twinkle toes, moving the ball away from the defender. The defender challenges him and then he goes down. Bernardeschi then started away the penalty. Then Bernardeschi had a free kick. They went off the bar, and then Mark and Anthony Kay tapped it in. And like you were saying, Felipe, earlier with your comments with regards to the Vancouver Whitecaps, like TFC just went into their shell at the end of the game, and the game became very disjointed. We were parking the bus, but then when we were winning the ball, everybody was rushing forward to try and score another goal and leaving us exposed at the back. And that's what happened with the second goal that we conceded. Jonathan Osorio fell asleep. The second goal we conceded in the second half. Jonathan Osorio fell asleep. He let his man get in behind him, but Jonathan Osorio was looking exhausted at that time. Why he was on the field and we didn't make more substitutions, I do not know. TFC only made 2 substitutions the entire game. We did not use 3 of our subs. I know we don't have the depth that we would like, but when your players are exhausted on their feet and they're struggling to get about the pitch, you need to make a substitution. With regards to the first goal we conceded in the second half, they crossed the ball in from the left-hand side. Benteke just simply outmuscled Roasted in rather embarrassing fashion, if I'm being honest. He was able to separate himself from Roasted by simply just manhandling him, and then it was a simple header for him at the back post. Obviously, you can see by Roasted's reaction on the goal, he was quite embarrassed with what happened, and he knew he was to blame for that goal, although we did let the assister get in behind us. I can't remember the name of the player. He was able to get behind our backline fairly easy. Nobody was helping Richie Larea on the right-hand side defend. Once again, it just seemed like players at that point were exhausted and they weren't thinking clearly. But yeah, very, very frustrating. But to be honest, even up to that point, when we had the lead 2-1 going into the latter minutes of the game, we didn't deserve that lead, if I'm being honest. We were very, very poor. Only Bernardeschi really stepped up. Also, I forgot to bring up that Insigne went down injured in the first half
Mm-hmm.
with what is said to be a lower leg injury. So we were a little bit concerned it would be a groin or a hamstring, but it does sound like it is a calf strain, but we'll see. Hopefully he'll only be out for a couple of weeks and not necessarily a month or two. But TFC's biggest problem was definitely in the midfield, in my opinion. Michael Bradley does something I keep touching on. He was never known for his athleticism, and what little athleticism he had, he no longer has. He is struggling to get around on the pitch. When he's on the ball, it's fine. Michael Bradley's an excellent passer. He's always been a regista. But with the way that Bob Bradley plays, you need your DM to be a destroyer, in my opinion, simply because we leave the DM exposed to so much space to cover defensively. You need somebody who's able to cover that when you're pushing both your eights forward and your fullbacks forward. You're leaving a lot of space there to cover that Michael Bradley can simply not cover himself. But he was not the only one in the midfield that struggled. Mark Anthony Kaye dropped an absolute stinker. And Jordan's joining at the right time here as we were just bringing up Mark Anthony Kaye. So, Jordan, I'm just going to fling this right to you. Give me your thoughts on Mark Anthony Kaye.
So, if we want an unused fourth striker, Mark Anthony Kaye is your man. Because apparently he doesn't know how to track back on defense.
No.
There's a reason why that side struggled for the first half is because nobody was there. Mark Anthony Kaye, that was his position, and he left nothing but acres and acres and acres of space behind.
Yeah.
That first goal that was scored was the man literally just walking in like it was a Sunday night stroll. He literally had to pick up whatever he wanted to do and just banged it in, no problem, because the backline, they were too afraid to move on up to try to take him on. Because look at what happened earlier in the game. Man's got nutmegged, and that set the tone for the rest of the game. The midfield and the backline was completely disjointed from what I see. And as soon as you break the first press and midfield press, it was just clear, wide open. I was like, oh, what is this? Wasn't this your spot? This guy took the term number 8 very liberally. It's like, yo, up and down. I'll go all the way up and sometimes go back down.
Yeah.
There was times in that game where they were literally targeting that side. And then Insigne went off, and then, oh, gosh. But overall, I did not really rate Mark Anthony Kaye's performance in the first half, especially because it left a lot to be desired. I gave him light last year because he was injury prone. He was often on the trainer bench, but there was a full preseason workout. There was a time to really ingratiate yourself in the system, and all I saw was the man really further up the field than in Lorenzo Insigne. I'm like, that is not your position, bro.
Yeah, it's all about knowing when you got to push up. So obviously, if anybody didn't watch, the first goal TFC conceded, Mark Anthony Kaye gave the ball away. And keep in mind, Mark Anthony Kaye is the 8 on the left-hand side. So he was on the right-hand side. He then gave the ball away. And then instead of tracking back into his position, he decided to press forward on the right-hand side. So not even his right, not in the correct side, which left wide open space. And obviously it put Bradley in a bad position because in Bradley, he doesn't recognize that he needs to drop and move more centrally instead of assisting and helping on the right-hand side and leaving. I believe he had Benteke on him, just leaving Benteke alone and letting Benteke to the defenders. It might not have been Benteke, but he was marking somebody towards the right-hand side. But Mark Anthony Kaye should have realized that I've given the ball away here. I need to drop back. But instead, he presses forward. And I know Bob Bradley's system is to press. And obviously, that's how Bob Bradley feels that a lot of offense can be generated, is by winning the ball in high positions and then moving the ball forward as soon as possible to one of our attackers, either Insigne or Bernardeschi, and letting them create something. But it seems like suicidal pressing, almost like Leeds at times this past season. If you're familiar with the Premier League, sometimes Leeds will press in ways that just don't make sense. It's like they're pressing for the sake of pressing, and just leaving themselves exposed in behind, which, as Jordan touched on, is what happened there. With regards to with TFC, with everybody else, Osorio was largely invisible, but I did feel bad for him because typically he is the midfielder we want to be the furthest forward, but at times he was having to drop very deep in order to get any ball whatsoever. But the midfield as a whole was completely disjointed. We definitely need help in the midfield. Our midfield is a big problem right now, in my opinion. I do know we have our strikers in Diomande and Akinola, who, after yesterday's game, I don't have the greatest faith in either of them. But I'm a Manchester United fan. Obviously, we won the Carabao Cup today, and we did so playing Wout Weghorst up top. And to me, it shows that if you have one position where you can get away with somebody necessarily not being good enough, but will put in a solid effort and assist the other players, I believe that is at striker. I feel at times, and I've been finding the TFC fan base has been pushing for us to sign a DP number 9. And as much as I think that would be nice, I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever, considering the holes we have, especially in midfield. Considering that I don't believe we have that much cap space available to us. I do know we acquired some GAM by selling Jadon Nelson, and obviously we generated some cap space by trading away Jesus Jimenez and bringing in Savania at a much lower cap hit. Yeah, no, we traded away Jesus Jimenez for Servania, and then obviously he's at a lower cap hit. So we do have some cap space available to us, but I don't know. I feel like we either need to replace one of Mark Anthony Kaye or Michael Bradley in the midfield right now. I don't know if I can trust any of them or both of them going forward, especially in the system we are playing right now, unless Bob Bradley changes his setup. I just find it's very strange how Bob Bradley's system does not get the best out of Michael Bradley. Michael Bradley right now, if you want to get the best out of him, he has to play a regista role where he has somebody next to him who's going to be the legs and do all the grunt work. And in my opinion, I thought that's what we were bringing in Mark Anthony Kaye to do. But we seem to be pushing, instead of playing more of a 4-2-3-1 per se, where you'll have Kaye next to him, we're playing the 4-3-3 where we're pushing Kaye rather high up. And it leaves Bradley on an island by himself at times. And it's just not good when you have players running right past him or he's not able to cover the ground. Me personally, I'd like to see us sign a DP6. I know I've been a big fan of Kubas at Vancouver, and I think if we brought in Kubas to TFC to either play next to Michael Bradley or replace Michael Bradley and then allow Kaye and Osorio to be a little bit more further forward without having to worry about covering for Michael Bradley per se, the system may function a little bit better. But Jordan, moving forward, like obviously now, Insigne is going to be out for a little bit of time. I'm going to assume at least a couple weeks. We don't really necessarily have the depth as we saw yesterday when Insigne went down. We brought on Ayo Akinola to play on the wing, and Ayo Akinola, I will give him credit. He has lost weight and he was running around. And he did show more than Diomande did, because Diomande did not offer anything at all, if I'm being honest. But they're both kind of similar in the way where both of their first touches are not great. They both love to spend a lot of time offside. I'm a little bit concerned about the attack too. So Jordan, like obviously our next game is going to be against we're playing Atlanta United away. Are you a little bit concerned going forward, or do you think we can fix some of our problems at the moment?
Can we have a show of hands on how many people thought that we didn't do enough this offseason to address all the concerns that we had going into the season?
Oh. Yeah. So that's 4 hands raised.
So is it really that big a surprise on how the first game went?
I would say it was, because we had, well, to start the game at least, our fully fit 11. I thought we would have issues as the season went along, but obviously now the problems have game 1, where we have no depth.
That right there was the crux of one of my big misgivings coming off this offseason. Because especially during 2021, I believe, they were talking about how they couldn't do all the moves that they wanted to do because they were looking forward to this past offseason to address every single thing that needed to be covered. And if you remember our cup-winning season, we had depth in the midfield, we had depth in the back line, we had solid goalkeepers, and we also had depth at striker. This team right now did not give me the same resolve that we had enough depth in every single position. Because remember, even if Michael Bradley was injured, we had like Armando Cooper or Benoit Cheyrou in the past to cover.
Yeah, we had Benoit Cheyrou, yeah.
Right?
And he was fantastic for you guys.
Yeah, he was.
Definitely he was. Even now, CF Montreal still has, not only do they have Samuel Piet, they have Victor Wembanyama as well.
Yeah.
And they have a couple other guys coming up the pipeline right now. Even though Vancouver decided to pull a Toronto FC last night, they still built a pretty solid team overall, and they addressed a lot of their needs. I think they had the best offseason out of the 3 Canadian teams, and that's saying something. It was pretty, for me at least, I'm like, we need a number 6. We need a number 6. We have the 8s. We don't have a number 6. Straight back to your point, Chris, because I think we were on the same wavelength for the longest time.
Yeah.
Especially online. That we needed a number 6 because we can get a Mercedes, but you can't run it on a Ford engine.
There's no point of having 3 DP attackers when we can't even get the ball to them. And when we get the ball to them, it's you guys are gonna have to do it all on your own almost.
So overall, I already came in like very realistic. Like Toronto's gonna be scrapping for a playoff spot, even though MLS decided to give us every single opportunity to make the playoffs.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I still have to look into that more, because it's one of them things where it's like, I don't know why we're doing this. So I'm just going to pretend like it doesn't exist until we're a part of it, to be honest. But yeah, best of 3 in the first round with some play-in games, and also, oh my God, I don't know. MLS is trying to become as North American as possible, I guess. Felipe, were you able to watch any of the game with regards to TFC?
Yeah, I was, and it was exactly what you guys were talking about. I mean, it's the midfield is the biggest problem with you guys. It was very much like, you say you wish you could bring someone like Kubas in. I think someone like him, because he's in Vancouver.
Oh yeah. Somebody like him. We're not going to get Kubas, but
would be a fantastic addition, because you're right. This is not Michael Bradley of 2015 or 2013, right?
No,
this is nowhere near.
No,
he needs to be like the American Pirlo right now, where he's just hanging back, just doing those as a deep line playmaker, just feeding balls in, because that's one of the few things he's still good at his age, and have someone, a hardworking midfielder beside him, and I think Mark Anthony Kaye seems to be in an advanced position. I think he's suited better to be in the middle of a pivot with both like Bradley and him. I think that would be a better positioning for him. And I also think in midfield depth, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, especially if you play him as a midfielder, this is like yesterday would be in a game where a player like Jaden Nelson. If he would have come in the 60th minute, being put in the midfield, he could have changed that game.
Yeah.
And so it goes with it goes a little bit with the offseason that you guys are having, where the offseason fell flat, if I'm being blunt, of everything that was expected of it. And the midfield was a concern and is continuing to be a concern. And unless, the plan is to wait to the summer to bring in a superstar defensive destroyer that can, free Bradley from his defensive roles and sit in front of that defense, to help them out, to bail them out, because technically 4 out of the 5 backline are completely new.
Yeah.
Right. That defensive line needs time to gel, to learn. You're not going to get a stunning display off the bat, so that's where you need a defensive midfielder to help the center backs, to help the defense, to bail them out. And Toronto doesn't have that. So I think it's going to be growing pains at the beginning of the season for you guys in the next few games.
Yeah.
Just because of that midfield, because the defense figuring it out, because Rosted got absolutely bullied.
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
It was literally like men against boys in that one. It was horrific.
And he knew it too right away.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think he's a bad defender. I just think it's a new league, it's a new environment, it gets different players, a different style and everything.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have anyone really in that defensive line to help him out, because everyone else is new, bar Richie Larea, and Richie's not really a leader either. So it's tough. And so I think that was the biggest thing I saw with Toronto, and also missed chances. I mean, that's the biggest thing I've seen across all three. Looking back at the highlights, Ayo Akinola, I don't know what happened that he had to basically fall over himself to shoot a shot right.
His touch for once, he did not have a heavy touch, and he was shocked by it, and then he fell over the ball. That's what it was, genuinely. I think he expected to slap the ball forward, but he didn't. He only slightly touched it, so it still remained under his feet. And then in a mad panic, he's just stumbled and shot the ball. I think he's come to expect his own heavy touch.
Yeah, I don't know. And I just think it was.
I'll be honest. I've been
a
big fan of Ayo Akinola's, to be honest. And at some point, if this continues, I'm going to have to hold my hands up and say my apologies for having such faith in him, and it just hasn't worked out, especially post-injury. The MLS's back tournament, he destroyed it, really. Excellent tournament. Then he came back last season. I mean, the season before last, had a bit of a slow start, made his debut for Canada. John Herdman really rated him. And then he gets injured. He's out for a year. And then obviously last season, coming back from such a serious injury, I'll give him that. Even though I think his performances were very poor last season. And like I said earlier, I'll give him credit for losing weight and for putting himself about. But he is a U22 initiative player, which is somebody who needs to be performing just below a DP level, in my opinion. And right now he's not doing that for us. And we could definitely get an improvement using the U22 initiative spot to maybe even get another striker, for example. Somebody younger who will come in at maybe a bit of a higher transfer fee, but wage will be relatively low. But I don't know. Ayo Akinola, I'm going to give these players the first 5 games or so. And after, especially the ones who have been here for a while. Anybody listening to the podcast, Jordan is giving me the thumbs down. But yeah, I'm concerned. I'm going to give the new players time. I think Petretta, he had some good moments. Obviously, he needs to learn that the MLS is a bit of a physical league. So, and the referees are more lenient with regards to physicality. So he needs to stay on his feet a little bit better. Savania, when he came on, I'm probably pronouncing his name completely wrong, but it is what it is for now. I think he looked decent coming on, but unfortunately, when we brought him on to play right midfield because we just have no depth whatsoever. And he's meant to be our midfield substitute, well, our only midfield substitution that we have at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. It's just these players that have been here for a while, Io Akinola, Mark Anthony Kay, Michael Bradley. I'm going to try and keep my opinions as quiet as possible for the first 5 games or so. But after that, I don't know. If this is continuing, it's going to be peak. And it's going to be Bob Bradley out. It's going to be Bill Manning out. One thing we'll definitely do as a future episode when things are a little bit more settled and we're into the season is looking at maybe going back and saying, did TFC do the right thing when they did it? When the previous regime of Ali Curtis and Chris Armas failed, should we have blown it up and taken a little bit of a slower rebuild rather than just trying to rebuild everything quickly on the fly and bring in the likes of Insigne when we really didn't have much besides these signings? Because even though we, as you touched on there, Felipe, we brought in a fair number of players and our squad is still very, very short. I would say we need another 3-4 signings, to be honest. And then that's scary. And that's scary considering we brought in like 5-6 players. Jordan, do you have any last words with regards to TFC before we move on?
Yeah, this basically exposed what we were saying before, and I can't really add too much to what you're saying. I largely agree with what you were saying, Chris. It's like they tried to paper mache over a bigger problem with the Insigne signing and Bernadeschi signing.
Yeah.
And
it's not planned because is it intelligent to bring in 2 designated player wingers? I don't know if that's the smartest way to build a team. I don't know. And to be honest, I think looking back at this, I think Bernadeschi, I don't think we will regret signing. But I think there's question marks over Insigne. But it's unfortunate that Insigne was the one that came in first, and probably as a result of bringing him in is what resulted in Bernadeschi coming in. So I don't think we can say, well, we shouldn't have brought in Insigne. We should have just brought in Bernadeschi. Only reason why I think we brought in Bernadeschi was because we had Insigne. But I don't know. Obviously we've got to give Insigne more time, but he is in his 30s. He signed a very lengthy contract. I believe it is a 6-year contract or 5-year contract. He's going to be playing for TFC until he's 36, 37. And right now he's injury prone. So I'm concerned there. But we'll move on from the depressing start to maybe, well, I don't know. We'll see how this section goes, but we'll move on to our Canadian Soccer 5 talking points. So I'll just come to everybody with a topic, give me your thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next topic. So obviously the first topic is the Canadian men's U17 success in the Concacaf U17 Championship. Since the last episode, Canada beat Puerto Rico 3-0 in the quarterfinals to qualify for the U17 World Cup, and then obviously lost to USA in the semifinals 2-0. So I'm going to come to you, Felipe. What are your overall thoughts with the U17's performance?
I mean, the Puerto Rico game, I was very impressed with how they were playing. I think that they actually showed identity. I think they actually showed a bit of what we were talking about last week, where they need to have some sort of philosophy as a team.
Yeah.
And I felt like we saw that actually against Puerto Rico.
I finally saw similarities between our national team and the U17s, which was something I never saw with the U20s at all. But yeah, it was nice to see.
Yeah, it was good to see, a lot of the players understanding the roles, the way that we are attacking from the wings, utilizing those wing backs. I mean, again, DeMontini, I think, is a fantastic crosser of the ball. And I think overall the game against Puerto Rico showed the capability that the under-17s have. at playing good soccer. And then in the game against the United States, it felt like they didn't play poorly. It wasn't as I don't think they played as poorly as they did in the earlier defeat, but it was mostly a case of, I don't know if it was psychology, the fact that they're facing the United States, but I think they were a bit more nervous. I mean, they give away a lot of turnovers. I think that's their biggest Achilles heel, is giving away possession cheaply, and switching off on set pieces, which is, again, it's that's something that you can work on. That's something that you should work on and should ingrain in a team, is defending on set pieces. And I think that was a bit lacking as well. Overall, I think this tournament showed that this crop of under 17 is probably one of the ones with the highest ceiling that we've seen in quite a long time. I mean, you can point out a lot of names that have some high ceilings, like Chimere Omeze, like Richard Chukwu, who's only like 14. DeMontini, again. Biello is very impressed with. Jamal Badwell played really well as well. I mean, the entire defense, I think, was probably the strongest part of Canada. I was really impressed with the defense, even the depth in defense, like Aiden Fong, Victor Fung coming in on the wing backs and center backs. I think that was their strength. Vojvodic was a good target man as well. He's a good finisher. So overall, there's a good crop of players there. It's just, once again, hoping that they get the proper support, get the resources to cultivate them as a national team, because obviously they can go off in their academies and develop as great players independent of the national team, but that doesn't mean that they're going to come back to Canada and play well with Canada, because that takes identity as a national team, and that's what I'm worried about. That is lacking with the under-17s. But even though we lost against the United States, I still think that it was a pretty positive tournament.
Yeah.
We did what we came for. We qualified for the under-17 World Cup in Peru, and I'm excited to see, hopefully, how the team improves and their performances in the World Cup in Peru.
Yeah, I think we just gotta, although with what's going on right now, who knows, but pray that they're provided some sort of camp before the World Cup. But with what's going on, I can see us just shipping them straight to the World Cup, unfortunately. But I agree with you, Felipe. The most impressive thing, and the one thing I was looking at from a player position wise, was who do we have coming up at center back, and who do we have coming up at defensive midfield, two positions where we lack depth with the national team. And I was impressed by the players in these positions, especially Biello, as well as Omizi. Stefanovic had some good games. I was really impressed. My expectation going into it beforehand was to qualify for the World Cup. And if we were to lose to either Mexico or USA, as long as it wasn't embarrassing, I was perfectly fine with that. And that's what ended up happening, to be honest. So I think we can all be proud of the performance in the tournament, especially when you take into account, especially compared to USA and Mexico, the preparation we provided to our players compared to, like I said, Mexico and the USA is a lot less. We provided them with one camp and 2 games. The Mexican and American teams had about 5 games and 3 camps. So it's hard to compare the two. Yes, development takes place in your club, but you need to build familiarity as well as a tactical identity, which can only happen when you're playing together. The next talking point is the Canadian women's national team. With their performance in the SheBelieves Cup. Canada, since the last time we had a podcast, Canada lost 3-0 against Japan. And Jordan, if I can come to you, what is your reflection on the performance in the SheBelieves Cup? And is it
I
fair
think-
to really go at the players with everything that's been going on?
I think they had a lot more in their mind than for obvious reasons,
Mhm.
like especially the whole turf war they have against the association, and then them threatening to go on strike, and then CSA countering is like, you guys don't go on strike, we are going to sue you guys. That is not exactly good for PR, and that's not exactly goodwill for the women's players, and justifiably so. Like, how are they going to react knowing that they won the gold medal and you guys are going to cut their funding? That's not fair to them. They should be getting everything that they deserve. Are you going to tell me that they shouldn't have gone with their gold medal tour and they should just cut that, and then you guys could have allocated to this SheBelieves Cup and the tournament going forward? That would be fair to them either.
Mhm.
Because, mind you, if Canada made it out of the group stage in the World Cup, believe me, I'm pretty sure we're all going to go to the games that they're going to have for a celebration tour just for getting out of the group stage. So it's not fair to judge them based on that, on how they performed, right?
Yeah.
Or if we're talking about the games themselves, I have never seen Kadisha Buchanan getting nutmegged and then pulled down for a penalty before. That's the first time that happened. I think that had a lot more to do with what's happening outside of the turf as opposed to what's happening right now. So I know some people are saying you got to be professionals, but guess what? Professionals get paid. Professionals get certain stuff that they deserve because of what the effort that they put into the country and into the program.
Yeah.
And I think the CSA has largely botched a lot of goodwill with the fans and goodwill with the players. And it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen in March and everything else going forward, because now we're going to have the government to come in and actually tell them, yo, what's actually happening right now? You guys need to tell us what's really going on. So hopefully we will get some kind of end point to this, because this can't keep going on for too long, because things are just going to get worse and you're just going to lose out on a whole generation of people that would want to play, and then they see what's going on and then nobody wants to play for us anymore. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So we were touching on the players with the Heritage Council. So supposedly John Herdman, Bev Priestman, and some of the players are meant to be meeting with the Heritage Council in early March, and then Nick Bontis will be later in March. Going by past actions, I think it's safe to say that he will not accept the invitation. So I'm sure he would have to be summoned by the issue of a subpoena, which is unfortunate, but I think it's going to get there. Also, while we're touching on that, I think it's hysterical. Obviously, I touched on last episode that nobody's talking about Victor Montagliani, and then he gets elected as Concacaf president.
Vancouver's own.
Pretty like clockwork.
And Bonds is getting elected as a vice president.
And Bonds, without any competition, becomes vice president. So I don't know how these Canadians are working up in CONCACAF. I guess it's FIFA probably looks at, these guys are doing very well with the Canadian program with regards
those
to
suits.
whatever they're doing.
That's why they spent all those millions of dollars on those suits.
I don't know. We'll actually touch on the CSA in a little bit, but a more positive topic is, well, for us anyways, is there's been a lot of chatter online with regards to who is the best player in CONCACAF. And I don't understand this chatter because, in my opinion, it's clear and obvious who the best player in CONCACAF is. And the drop-off between 1 and 2 is quite significant. But when it comes to Medi Mehdi, who is the best male player in CONCACAF right now?
Alphonso Davies.
Okay.
I mean, not even the World Cup only goal ever scored by Canadian. I just think I was watching a game, Bayern Munich, one of their last games, and I mean, just studying the way he plays, he's incredible. So I definitely agree with that statement. I mean, if you look at just Canadian men's soccer, all-time goals is Laren, right? And then we got OGs like Dwayne De Rosario. But I think overall impact in CONCACAF, and he's so young too, right? He's what is he, like 23, 24, Davies? So much more left for him to cement in his career. So yeah, I would definitely say he's top in CONCACAF.
Yeah, so Davies is turning 23 this year in November. But yeah, he's arguably, I won't say he's the best left back in the world. I'll say maybe he's top 3, to be conservative, or at the minimum top 5. I can't think of any other CONCACAF player that's in the top 5 of their position. I can't think of anybody, and I don't know how we're having this discussion. Like, I think it's quite clear he's the best. Obviously, we're used to Navas being the best, but I think Navas, he's no longer who he once was, if we're being honest. He's still a very good goalkeeper, but there's no ways Navas is top 5 in the world anymore, in my opinion. So I think it's quite clearly it's Jonathan Alphonso Davies, and then you can start talking about wherever else, but it's quite a significant drop-off after there. We'll come back to the CSA and something that I'm personally made my blood boil, to be honest. And I think I dropped a few profanities while reading it, but Rick Westhead reported that Canada Soccer has informed provincial associations of a possible increase in player registration fees. This will have a major impact on youth and amateur soccer in this country. And the reason for this increase is to generate enough revenue so that the CSA no longer requires to make the cuts that they made to 2023. They're looking to raise, I believe, 11 million, if possible, with a minimum target of 5 million by increasing these fees. I'm going to come to you, Felipe. Were you surprised at this? I'll be honest, I wasn't. I foresaw this coming, but do you think it's crazy that we're stooping to this kind of level when we should be growing the game in this country?
Yeah, I mean, very much to your credit, Chris, that you called it when this whole drama was happening, that you could see this being that somebody had to give, and
somebody had to pay the price.
Exactly, and it was going to be youth soccer, and it's turning out like you said. And I mean, it is despicable. It is horrible for the growth of the game, for the reputation of Canadian soccer. You know, with the golden generation that we have now, we're seen as a country that can raise superstars, that can raise good players, and the fact that we're willing to stoop to gut youth programs and make them more expensive. I mean, it's horrible, because the last thing you want to see is soccer become an elitist sport, to become soccer becoming a class issue, in the same way that like hockey is in Canada as well, with how expensive it is. Because soccer is a sport that is supposed to be available for everyone to play.
It's a working man's sport.
Exactly. It's as long as you have a ball to play with, and you don't even need shoes. You can play it in your bare feet as well. Something to kick. You can play soccer. And the fact that we're making it more expensive, less accessible for a lot of kids to play with is only going to be detrimental to our development as a soccer country, because a lot of good talent is going to slip between the cracks because they can't afford to play in these programs, and we're not going to be able to develop the ones that we do have because of cuts to camps and to training programs, development programs, and so on and so forth. So it's terrible. It's again a bad look on Canada soccer. Canada soccer is just on a hot streak of just terrible looks.
Yeah, no.
Cold
Uh,
streak.
yeah, I guess you could call
Yeah,
it a
it's a
cold
cold
streak.
streak. Yeah, man.
Where now it's just embarrassing. It's ridiculous. You don't, if you don't laugh, you cry, or you rage. And so
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think it's we need something else. We need some it might have to come down to, we need some outside help to deal with these things that come in. I know that's not what we want. I know that puts the World Cup at risk. I know it puts everything, but I mean,
Hmm.
this is the future of Canada soccer,
Yeah.
and we want it to be in good hands, because it's a pivotal moment. I mean, the attention we're having now is the most that we've ever had, because of the players that we have, because of the platform that we have, because we're going to get a World Cup, because of the era that we're in football. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's troubling times, and I don't see a way that we can resolve this without a third party coming in and cleaning up shop.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that third party ain't going to be CONCACAF or FIFA. It's going to have to be our own government, which, as you were touching on there, Felipe, FIFA especially does not like it when the government gets involved with a country's football or soccer association at all. But with what's going
What else
on,
are we supposed to do?
But what else are we meant to do? To be honest, I'm at the point where I don't care if we scrap hosting the World Cup. To be honest, I'm just very frustrated. I think it's very opportune time that Nick Bontis is doing this now, looking at raising the fees. I think it's taking opportunity of maybe trying to put the blame on the women's national team and the men's national team, saying, well, they're looking for more money. I don't have the money I've got to get it from somewhere. I know Jordan has been going on that money could have been raised in many different ways, such as hosting games in Canada and promoting them correctly, and hosting games where people will want to go and watch them.
Get your name out there.
Get your name out there. Having merchandise actually available. Releasing a World Cup kit, which we didn't do because of our own failure to foresee ourselves qualifying for the World Cup. I don't know. I think when our program should be getting better, and people at the grassroots level should now be having an easier job, and they should be having more funding available to them. It seems like everybody's jobs are going to be getting more difficult, especially at the grassroots level. You're going to be seeing a lot more bake sales. You're going to be seeing a lot more charity events. I know for my own club, we were discussing at what will we do if player registration fees were to increase by 50%, 25%. What are we going to do? And we've already done our budgets for this year. So it's difficult. It's difficult. I guess we're just going to have to do what we got to do to get through. But it's frustrating because our jobs now should be getting easier. We should have more resources available to us, but we don't. I don't know. Youth and amateur soccer in this country has been used as the cash cow to fund Canada soccer for years, and to help the national teams as well when they weren't generating the revenue, which is fine. They needed the support then, but it's very frustrating. I don't know. We need to know where the money is going. We need the Heritage Council to get involved, and whatever the backlash is from FIFA, we just have to accept it. I don't know how, like with us supposedly being automatic. I think it's too late for FIFA to not have us host. Well, maybe that can change, but
we don't have Qatar money.
Yeah, this is true, but I don't know. I'm very frustrated. I thought I'd have more to say on this topic, to be honest, but I don't.
Let's be real.
It's frustrating. Very, very frustrating. You have something to add, Jordan?
Let's be real. This all started in 2017.
Yeah.
The moment CSA signed a stupid CSB deal, that's when things started to, in hindsight, turn for the worse today.
Yeah.
Because it may have looked like a great deal then, but they had no wherewithal to think, hey, we actually have potential here to do something.
Yeah.
The thing is, a lot of these successful countries, even Belgium, they knew what players they had coming up and down the line. They had a project based on players that they were grooming from the beginning to get to where they are today. Like, remember, they weren't at the World Cup for too long. They just it wasn't like Eden Hazard, Dries Mertens, and Thibaut Courtois like came out of nowhere. They knew what was happening. They built a system accommodating the potential that they were going to have. The CSA did not do that. They didn't do
No.
anything about that. It's like they fell on a 4-leaf clover. They slipped on a horseshoe and it's like, oh yeah, we got Alphonso Davies, who did not pay for any of these fees to play the game because he had a free, he had a subsidized program in Edmonton, Alberta, which was subsidized by Vancouver Whitecaps to play the game. So he was more of an exception to the rule as opposed to what they're trying to standardize right now.
Yeah.
We're going to lose players like Alphonso Davies down the road because they can't afford to pay these fees.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Like,
We're
anybody
gonna
who
lose
has any
more and more dual nationals are going to go to their dual national country into academies there. It's going to be like Canada has always been. And that's what has happened. We've been lucky recently where we've been able to convince players to play for us, even though they've gone elsewhere to develop. But that's only going to last so long. And it's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating.
I just don't want it to get back to where it used to be, but that's really what it's going to look like. It's just everything's exposed.
Yeah.
And when it comes to FIFA, if they're not going to do it themselves, then the Canadian government has to do something.
Yeah.
And it's not like the government's like specifically targeting the CSA or anything like that.
Mhm.
Look at if the government didn't get involved with Canada hockey, nothing would have changed there either.
Yeah.
Everything got exposed there. If nothing else, it shows that they are very objective to making sure the right thing is done.
Mhm.
And based on all the documentaries that we have looked at, FIFA's much more about this than.
Oh
this.
yeah, FIFA.
So,
FIFA.
end of the day,
follows the money.
I'm really not worried about what FIFA's going to do. It's like we're just doing their work for them. So
Yeah.
that's my opinion on that.
Yeah. I guess we'll move on to the last topic or talking point for this evening, and that is Atiba Hutchinson's future. So there was actually a lot of rumors that Atiba Hutchinson was either released or bought out by Besiktas. He was on Besiktas' bench today, but he didn't come on. So he's still a Besiktas player, but there seems to be a lot of uncertainty with regards to his future. And regardless, he's out of contract at the end of, in the summer anyways with Besiktas, and I don't foresee them re-signing him. So I'll come to you, Jordan, for this last topic. What do you see happening with Atiba?
After yesterday's performance, I see him on the bench for TFC. And it can't be any faster than this coming weekend. I'll tell you this right now. Because we desperately need a guy of his stature and a guy of his ability to play. Because, my goodness, we don't have anybody else right now.
I do worry, though, is that he's not fixing our problem with mobility in the midfield, but we are taking all and any midfield warm bodies. Whoever can move and kick a ball, we have a spot for you.
Yeah, I was talking in the preseason where we should probably look at the CPL for depth. And it's coming to fruition right now that we need to look in certain other areas that we normally would have to try and fulfill that right now.
Yeah.
Atiba Hutchinson, he may have the ability to potentially go to Atletico Ottawa, as a matter of fact, because of that.
Yeah.
Because there was apparently a petition that was
Yeah.
signed for them to go and reach out to him to play for Atletico Ottawa.
Yeah.
So that's very fun, actually. It would have been like how Julian de Guzman used to play for Ottawa Fury back in the day when he was still the Canadian captain.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of synergy there. Hopefully that might happen.
Yeah. I gotta hope that Atiba, this is his last year playing, to be honest. He is 40 years old. And we saw at the World Cup that he's struggling. He can't play more than once a week. And when he does play, he can maybe play 60 minutes. So you got a player who can only play 60 minutes once a week. and unfortunately, a player that I think still needs to be in the Canadian men's national team simply because we don't have the depth at central defensive midfield right now. I think it would be nice if he were to come to the Canadian Premier League for half a season, or comes to MLS for a Canadian team for half a season. But I just don't want Atiba to be one of these players that just holds on and holds on and holds on. He's already held on for several years now. He is 40 years old. Yes, we do call him the Benjamin Button of Canadian soccer, but I hope
Just like Luka Modric.
Yeah, but he is, I think, 3 years older than Luka Modric, and he never was the player Luka Modric was. So I love Atiba, Canadian legend, but if he continues to play, I'm hoping 2023 is his last year. Maybe he can play another year or two in the Canadian Premier League, but definitely with regards to the national team, this has got to be it. We got to sink or swim in future years with whatever defensive midfielders we have. I think that's going to wrap it up for us. I want to thank Jordan, Maddie, and Felipe for joining me here this evening. A reminder that everybody's links are in the description below, so make sure to follow everybody. And thank you, the listeners, for joining us here on Canadian Footy Fan Channel, content for fans, by fans. Show your support by smashing the like and the subscribe button and getting your thoughts in the comment section. If you're listening to the podcast, please follow the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and put in an honest review. I have been your host, Chris, signing out.